economically exposed country to weather hazards, facing annual economic losses of 12 billion US dollars or 3% of the GDP equivalent. That is about 707 billion pesos every year. Basically, all I want to say is, hindi na po dapat tayo nagugulat na may malakas na bagyo na dumarating taon-taon. Hindi na dapat tayo kinakabahan dahil may super typhoon. Typhoons and storms has been part of our life. The location of the Philippines makes it the entry point of typhoons. And so, everything we do, be it building bridges, roads, drainage, and irrigation systems, scheduling the school calendar, setting work arrangements for public or private employees, planning the agricultural cycle, or providing for fishing facilities and support. We should always have in mind the year-round typhoons and extreme weather conditions in our country. Having said that, I have some few questions. Now, do we have a whole government approach when it comes to the effects of extreme weather conditions in our country, Mr. President?
Thank you for that, and thank you for that question, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, resiliency is embedded in our Philippine Development Plan, and in the proposed budget, as well as the budgets before, we have already allocated funds for adaptation and mitigation, which are embedded in various themes in the budget. For example, food security, water sufficiency, ecosystem and environmental stability, human security, climate smart industries and services, sustainable energy, knowledge and capacity development, and cross-cutting concepts. So it's embedded already in the various programs and projects of the government, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President, for that answer. And my next question is, how do we ensure that we don't spend on things that will be washed away or being damaged by typhoons?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President, for that question. In fact, that's really a challenge, Mr. President, even though I mentioned that it's embedded in our budget to a tune of 983 billion. But if you walk around different areas that were ravaged by the different typhoons, you can see a lot of our classrooms are damaged, destroyed by the typhoon. So it goes to show that even our classrooms are not resilient to these extreme weather events. And there's still a lot of things to be done in order to improve the engineering and design of our classrooms and government buildings so that they can withstand and resist extreme weather events, Mr. President.
Okay, again, thank you for that answer, Mr. President. The 12 billion loss almost every year, have you pinpointed what are these and what have we done to mitigate these things, Mr. President?
Like for example, Mr. President, I saw in a report that for Bagyong Tino and Uwan, the damage in agriculture is now at 1 billion pesos, Mr. President. So mostly the damages will happen with agriculture, education, and infrastructure, Mr. President, but primarily education and agriculture, Mr. President. So the 12 billion is scattered among those items, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. So how do we protect the vulnerable sector of our society, when it comes to typhoons. I'm not referring to NDRMC. What I'm trying to say is, how can we be proactive in this sense, Mr. President?
Well, Mr. President, the NDRMC fund, both national and local, contains what we call pre-disaster allocations, Mr. President. So they can use those funds to capacitate themselves in pre-disaster preparations, Mr. President. So, for example, LGUs can buy equipment to in order to respond quickly. They can also build, let's say, repacking centers in order to repack relief goods. So part of the fund use is a pre-disaster component, Mr. President. So LGUs and the national government is capacitated to use that for pre-disaster activities.
Thank you, Mr. President. The projects you did mention, have they been proven to reduce the yearly damages caused by extreme weather conditions, Mr. President?
Well, Mr. President, you're absolutely correct. There's still a lot of things to be done in terms of monitoring and evaluation. We actually had talked about that yesterday as well. That a lot of these funds are given to LGUs, given to agencies, but monitoring and evaluation is still wanting. So we talked about that with Secretary Balisacan, that part of their reforms that they will be doing. And this cuts across different agencies and different projects, including flood control projects, to improve the monitoring and evaluation of projects. Para alam ho natin na every peso spent will yield to outputs and outcomes, Mr. President.
Salamat, Mr. President. Being the committee chair sa Senate ng Labor, I would like to tackle the issue of JO, or job order. Mr. President, or contractual, in short, or also known as, napakarami pong mga kawani sa ating gobyerno na nagtatrabaho for 10, 15 years na, pero hanggang ngayon, sila ay JO pa rin, sila ay casual pa rin without benefits. Yung iba mag-retire na lang, casual pa rin, contractual pa rin. Do we have any plans for these people, Mr. President, na palaging matatawag nating yearly sila'y aping-api dahil every single year, kailan nila magpakita ng gilas or otherwise kakanselahin na yung kanilang kontrata, Mr. President?
Maraming salamat ho sa tanong na yan, Senator Tulfo. In fact, na-raise ko ho yan nung budget hearing ng Civil Service Commission. Napakadami ho nating unfilled positions. Libo-libo po yung unfilled positions natin in various agencies. Pero marami rin tayong JOs and Contracts of Service, COS. So, in other words, bakit ho natin hinahayaan yung mga kasamahan natin sa gobyerno na JO, COS, pero marami naman unfilled, no? So ito yung isang bagay na binuksan ho namin sa Civil Service Commission na i-match ho nila yung mga JO, COS dun sa unfilled positions. Kasi ang nagiging issue ho dyan yung qualification standards ng Civil Service Commission. So sayang ho, may available yung position, and dito naman yung mga JOs dapat i-match ho. So yun po yung isang hakbang na sinuggest ho namin sa Civil Service Commission para mabigyan naman ho natin ng security of tenure and benefits yung mga JOs and COS. At tama ho kayo, talagang dapat ho kalampagin ho natin ang mga kasamahan natin sa executive para po hindi naman manatiling habang buhay o buong buhay na ho ng isang tao na maging JO at COS.
Correct, Mr. President. Recently, I did an inspection sa office ng MMDA and napansin ko sa aking pagtatanong na marami sa mga street sweepers, sa mga traffic enforcers na hanggang ngayon, after so many years, sila ay JO pa rin or casual at walang benefits. At nakakaawa po mapapakinggan yung kanilang mga hinaing na taon-taon kailangan nilang, sabi ko kanina, magpakitang gilas para may-renew ang kanilang kontrata. Pardon the word, but they have to kiss ass para lamang ma-maintain yung kanilang status doon sa kanilang tanggapan. Another good example is the DSWD. There are hundreds of social workers at DSWD who's been working with the DSWD for decades, but still sila po ay mga JO pa rin o casual. Although tinanong ko na po yan, baka naman meron mga unfilled positions, sabi nila meron pero kukunti lang, hindi nagmamatch doon sa demand na para magkaroon ng permanent position o plantilla yung mga matagal nang nagtatrabaho sa DSWD, Mr. President.
Tama ko kayo, Senator Raffy. In fact, every year ina-advocate po ito ni Senator Joel Villanueva at regular ho natin sinasabi sa kasamahan ho natin sa executive na dapat ho yung mga unfilled position lagyan na ho natin or regularize natin yung mga JOs and COS. Just to give you an idea po, ang pinakamarami pong JOs at COS ay nasa local government units. About 70% ng mga JOs at COS nasa local government units. Ang national government, about 20%. So, isa rin po yan na dapat ho natin ipaalala sa ating mga local government units. Na, for example, yung mga street sweepers na sinabi nyo, na kung merong opening o magkaroon sila ng programa na i-regularize itong mga COS at JOs dahil every 6 months nangangamba sila kung marirenew yung kontrata nila. No? At kung maganda naman yung trabaho nila, dapat maging reward at patas rin para sa kanila na ma-regularize.
Okay. Siguro alam na po natin lahat, ito Mr. President, palagi tayo nagsisigaw na no to endo or end of contract. At pinapatama natin palagi yung mga private companies, mga malalaking korporasyon. Pero wag ka, ang numero unong violators ng endo ay ang gobyerno. So bakit hindi po natin bigyan ng tamang budget ang mga hensyang nangangailangan ng mga taong gawing permanent sa pamagitan ng giving the right budget?
Magandang balita ho, Senator Tulfo, dahil this coming year, mag-uumpisa na po yung Government Optimization Program under RA 12231. At mayroon pong 10 billion pesos na nakalaan para dito po sa optimization program. So ang ibig sabihin nitong optimization program, gagawa rin po ng mga plantilla positions para po doon sa mga kasamahan ho natin na matagal ng JO at COS. At i-a-adjust rin po yung qualification standards para ho pasok yung mga qualification ng JOs at COS dito po sa mga plantilla items. So hindi lang po ang optimization, hindi lang po magiging epesyente po yung government operations, kung hindi maglalagay rin po ng tamang tao sa tamang posisyon.
Okay. Nabanggit niyo, Mr. President, kanina na marami mga unfilled positions sa different government agencies, and you are really correct. As a matter of fact, base po sa datos, umaabot sa 154,986 yung mga unfilled positions para sa 2026 lang. So, ano po ang balak ng ating pamalaan para yung mga unfilled positions ay malagyan ng posisyon?
Tama ho kayo, Senator Tulfo. Out of the 2 million positions, 179,000 ang unfilled positions. At meron din pong mga complication to pagdating sa qualification standards. Tama po yung observation ho ninyo na may GOs pero may unfilled position. So ito yung isa sa mga aayusin po sa government optimization law para po matulungan natin yung mga GOs at COS makapasok po dito sa mga unfilled positions. Kasi itong mga unfilled positions, created na ho siya. No? At pwedeng lagyan ng pondo, iba nga may pondo na, pero hindi naman na-filled ng iba nga, taon na. No? So, yun po yung isang mga gagawin po ng government optimization program.
Thank you, Mr. President. Karamihan sa mga JO o COS ay hindi mga hindi civil service eligible.
Yeah.
At dahil kailangan ng eligibility bago maging regular or permanent, kailangan nila mag-exam. So, paano po natin sila matulungan, Mr. President, para mas mapabilis, mapagaan sa bulsa ang pagkuha ng civil service exam at malamang sa malamang sila ay papasa, Mr. President? Anong klaseng suporta ang pwedeng maibigay ng Civil Service Commission doon sa mga mag-exam na tulad sinabi ko, hindi sila civil service eligibility, kaya hindi pa sila ma-hire. Anong tulong o programa meron ng civil service para ma-ensure na later, balang araw, sila ay maging permanent at sila ay papasa muna sa civil service exam, Mr. President?
Aside from the government optimization law, Senator Raffy, meron ring ang CSC na inilabas na resolution. This is CSC Resolution 2301123. At ito ay tinatawag nilang Career Service Eligibility Preferential Rating. So this Career Service Eligibility Preferential Rating to specified government workers based on length of service and work performance. So at ang application ho nito applies to JO, COS, casuals, contractuals, coterminous employees, and those holding category 3 and 4 positions. So in other words, mabibigyan ho sila ng preferential rating based on their length of service and their performance. Kung maganda naman po yung ginagawa ho nila, matagal na ho sila sa gobyerno, expert na sila sa ginagawa nila, kahit na wala ho silang civil service eligibility, pwede ho silang bigyan ng preferential rating.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let's move on. Doon naman po tayo sa digitalization. Digitalization is one of the most effective ways to eliminate human intervention, prevent bribery, and accelerate government services. Digitalization is not about building and funding more systems. Ito po ay tungkol sa pag-alis ng mga pagkakataon para sa korupsyon, ensuring secure data, and making government faster and more transparent. Kung ang digitalization ay puro scan at upload lang ng documents, lipat lang sa online ang corruption at hindi ito mawawala. Sa kabila ng maraming digitalization programs sa iba't ibang ahensya, patuloy pa rin po ang korupsyon, smuggling tulad sa customs, at pandaraya sa mga dokumento. Malinaw na may mga kakulangan sa implementasyon, security, at system integration. Ang tanong, how do we hold agencies accountable when digitalization projects fail to deliver real results? What concrete mechanisms are in place to evaluate this system actually work? Tulad na naman po sa digitalization sa Bureau of Customs, Mr. President.
Actually, isa po sa paraan para po hintuhon natin ang corruption is through digitalization. And actually throughout the hearings here in the Senate, ang nakikita kong overall theme ng mga agencies is request for ICT equipment and digitalization. And pangalawa, the use of artificial intelligence. That's why they're requesting for ICT. So ang direksyon ho ng buong gobyerno is mag-digitalize. And here in the Department of Finance, meron ho silang 6.9 billion allocation for digitalization and modernization initiatives. So yan po yung programa ho natin at nakalaan sa budget para po sa digitalization in the Department of Finance. But for the entire bureaucracy, meron ho tayo nakalaan na 87 billion for digitalization activities of different agencies, Department of Education, the ICT, even the judiciary, Mr. President, talagang full speed sila for digitalization. DILG, kanina nabanggit ko, DOF. So, the whole government has 87 billion for digitalization efforts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Noong April 2024, sabi po ng Bureau of Customs, 96.99% digitalized na po ang kanilang operasyon na nag-start po noong March 2021, which is very good, actually. Ang tanong po, sino po nag-provide ng digital system ng BOC, Mr. President?
bid?
Mr. President, thank you for that question. I was advised by the Bureau of Customs na dahil po nagkaroon ng kaso once upon a time, meron silang efforts to have a fully digitalized system provided by a supplier, but nagkaroon ho ng kaso ito, so hindi ho natuloy. So ang ginawa ho nila, using their in-house IT office, nag-develop po sila ng systems in-house na nag-digitalize sila ng different offices. But, Mr. President, hindi ho ito perfect. No? Marami dito sa mga systems nila are individually developed. So, hindi pa ito yung tinatawag natin end-to-end system. So, yun naman ang balak ko ni Commissioner Nepomuceno last time nung nagkaroon ho kami ng hearing sa Committee on Ways and Means, na magkakaroon ho sila ng partnership with a entity na magpo-provide ng end-to-end system at no cost to the government.
So right now, you said, Mr. President, na internalized
Yes, internal
sila.
Correct.
Pero isn't that dangerous? There's the risk na magkaroon ng tampering kasi sila lang po ang nag-uusap.
But yeah. Tama ho kayo, Senator Tulfo, na importante yung check and balance even within the Bureau. So, meron ho silang mga ginagamit na technologies para magkaroon ng audit trail at gumagamit rin sila ng digital signatures para ma-track down yung movement po ng mga papeles. But from a management level ho, meron silang an independent group. This is the Information Management Group that reports straight to the commissioner, no? Na independent ho siya. So parang siya yung nagche-check po sa lahat po ng mga activities sa baba po ng Bureau of Customs, at yung independent group na yun reports directly to the commissioner. But moving forward, ang plano ho talaga nila ay magkaroon ng isang third-party provider, at itong third-party provider rin will provide a much more sophisticated system pagdating sa audit trail at sa transparency and accountability.
Okay. A good example, Mr. President, ay yung sa X-ray. Meron tinatawag na green lane at may tinatawag na yellow lane. So, yung kargamento, na lahat ng kargamento ay dumadaan dyan sa X-ray, supposedly. And yung mga natatag as sa yellow lane na dapat dumaan, yun ay mga kargamentong galing sa mga high-risk countries na pinaghinalaang talamak ang smuggling ng kung ano ng mga produkto or may mga kontrabando. Sometimes natatag dahil yung broker o importer ay meron ng hindi magandang record. Now, paano po natin ma-ensure, Mr. President, na doon sa computer system na nakakonect sa X-ray, hindi po ma-alter yun at yung mga kargamento na dapat naka-yellow lane, i-green lane na lang lahat-lahat?
But Mr. President, I was advised by the Bureau of Customs. Meron ho silang mga parameters for the green lane, also for the yellow and red lane, no? So may mga parameters ho sila. In a nutshell ho, only the commissioner can change the parameters, no? So hindi ho pwedeng kahit sino-sino lang at the lower level na palitan po yung parameters. So meron ho silang committee or group that discusses about the parameters, but it's only the commissioner that can change those parameters, no? So ganun po yung kanilang check and balance, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dumako naman po tayo sa National Single Window System or NSW. The National Single Window is the flagship anti-smuggling digital system to automate and integrate all trade-related procedures. During last year's budget hearing, then Secretary Ralph Recto committed that the system would be in place by May 2025. As of today, hindi pa rin po nagpa-function yung NSW, I believe, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, within the year, magkakaroon na tayo of what we call an enhanced national single window. A mechanism ho nito will be a PPP, and the program advisor is one of the biggest funds, national sovereign funds in the world, no? Temasek Holdings of Singapore. So sila yung advisor on this enhanced national single window, and it will be undertaken by the DICT. So DICT po ang lead agency na gagawa nito. So tama ho kayo, napakatagal na itong national single window. Parang every budget naririnig ko. But this time around, under the leadership of former Secretary of Finance, si Secretary Ralph Recto, matatapos na ho ito by end of the year. No?
So, sa next budget hearing, Mr. President, meron
Yes,
na.
Mr. President. Tama kayo. Actually, every year naririnig ko rin to.
Okay.
And this is a way to fight red tape. No? Kasi single window, so doon na lang po pupunta ho talaga lahat. And fully digitalized to. So, I was advised kanina na by end of the year, tapos na po yung PPP. No?
Okay. Pag-usapan na natin, Mr. President, yung interest payments on national government debts. Yung binabayaran nating interest sa utang ng gobyerno ay umabot na sa 503 billion pesos noong 2022. At lalaki pa po ito sa 950 billion pesos ngayon 2026. Kumpara nitong taong 2025, madadagdagan ito ng 101 billion pesos sa taong 2026. So, ang bayarin po natin sa 2026, kunti na lang, abutan na nito ang budget para sa local government units na nasa 19.9% ng 2026 budget. So, okay lang pong umutang kung napupunta sa maganda yung inutang. Ano po? Masasabi natin sulit at pagbabayad natin ng interest na kung gaano man kalaki yun. Meron ba tayong datos kung alin ang good debts at alin po yung bad debts, Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, napag-usapan ho namin ni Secretary Recto, ngayon Executive Secretary, na naawa ho ako sa kanya dahil pagod na ho kumolekta ng buwis at mag-increase ng revenue para sa gobyerno. Pero masakit ho sa kanya na napupunta naman po sa mga korupsyon at projects na wala naman pong benepisyo sa taong bayan. Kaya napakahirap po dahil mahirap mangolekta ng buwis at mahirap po talagang siguraduhin na meron ho tayong pondo. Yeah. So sabi niya ang program ho for 2026 is 13.6 billion a day ang collection. So having said that, Mr. President, going back to the interest payments, actually ho ang utang ho ng gobyerno lumobo po during the pandemic dahil kailangan ho natin umutang for vaccines and yung mga anti-COVID equipment, anti-COVID programs. Dati po ang ating debt to GDP is below 40%. Nasa 30% pa nga ho at one point. Pero umakyat ho yan to about 60-65% after the pandemic. So marami ho talaga sa utang na yun dahil po sa COVID. Pero kailangan ho dahil bumili ho tayo ng vaccines. Pero ang kagandahan naman po, yes, at that of course, ngayon ho, dito sa administration ho, ang nagbabayad nitong increase in debt. Pero ang kagandahan naman ho, may planong pababain yan. No? So hopefully over time, makabalik na tayo sa pre-pandemic levels natin. Basta ho, tuloy-tuloy ang paglago ho ng ating ekonomiya.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I don't know kung suntok sa buwan itong katanungan ko, Mr. President. Kailan kaya mababayaran ng Pilipinas ang lahat ng utang nito? Kasi every single year, tayo po'y umuutang. And every single year, tayo po'y nagbabayad sa interest po lamang. At hindi po nagagalaw yung principal. Kasi sa ngayon, Mr. President, yung mga apo-apo natin may utang na agad. Dahil sa napakalaking trilyones na utang ng ating pamahalaan, Mr. President.
Well, Mr. President, in reality po, walang bansang walang utang. Walang bansang walang may utang. Halos lahat po, actually lahat ng bansa may utang po. Ang importante po, minamanage po yung utang. At isang paraan para po i-manage yung utang ay tuloy-tuloy ng paglago ng ekonomiya. At tayo naman, ang kagandahan ho sa atin dahil maganda po yung fundamentals ng ating ekonomiya, yung credit rating ho natin maganda. No? So nasa stable at investment grade ho tayo. Ang effect ho niyan, mababa po yung interest payments na binabayaran natin sa mga international lenders ho natin, even domestic lenders. So ang importante ho ay tuloy-tuloy po yung paglaki ng ekonomiya natin para po yung utang ho natin mapapaliit at mapapaliit ho natin. So yun po yung strategy na ginagawa po ng administrasyon.
So sa ngayon ba, Mr. President, yung utang natin na nagagalaw ba yung principal, meaning nababawasan ba o puro pagsiservice lang tayo ng interest every year, Mr. President?
Ang strategy ho ng economic managers ay yung principal po ay rollover ho natin. So nagbabayad ho tayo ng amortization, nagbabayad ho tayo ng interest at pinapaikot lang ho natin. So kahit na umiikot ho siya, basta lumalago po yung ating ekonomiya, liliit at liliit po yung ating utang. So in fairness naman, in the past few years, ang average growth natin nasa around 5%, 5.9%. So yan po ay mabilis kumpara po sa mga ibang bansa na ang growth ho nila ay nasa mga 2% to 3%.
So ibig sabihin, maganda po yung growth ng ating bansa.
So far.
At lalong nagkakaroon ng kumpiyansa yung ibang bansa na para pautangin tayo. Pero hindi pa rin nagagalaw yung principal. Hindi pa rin nababayaran.
Ano naman po, pinapaikot naman ho. Yan ay isang strategy na ginagawa po ng, actually most countries ganun ho, pinapaikot lang po yung kanilang utang. So ganun po yung strategy ng most economies.
Ang Okay, narinig ko sinabi ni Executive Secretary.
Just to put in the record, sabi po ng ating Executive Secretary, ang utang ngayon ng buong mundo, lahat po ng 200 plus countries is about $400 trillion.
Global GDP 100 lang.
Ang global GDP is $100 trillion. So 4 times ang utang. Tayo po is around nasa 60 tayo. So wala tayo sa 4 times.
Pero tama po kay Mr. President, halos lahat ng bansa naman may utang.
Meron naman po. Meron.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, doon naman po tayo sa Chinese foreign donations. Ano po, Mr. President? In a memorandum issued by the Investment Coordination Committee, or ICC, on June 2, 2017, it was stated that all proposed projects for funding with the Chinese government, regardless of amount, shall require the ICC's approval. Ilan po sa mga China-funded projects that are still for review, if there are, by the ICC?
Sa ngayon po, Mr. President, wala na ho tayong China funding or China loans. Marami po dito sa mga China loans, yung mga ODA China loans, nag-expire na po. Since wala na rin pong interest from China to lend to us at tayo, wala na rin interest to borrow, nag-expire na po itong mga China loans po.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Now, there is this report from Louis Institute on Southeast Asia Aid Report that cites the Philippines, well, cited by the Philippine Star. The projects that did end up being funded by China included a military grant from China's Defense Ministry in 2022, where around 1 billion pesos worth of donated Chinese military equipment. It was acquired by the Department of Defense under then Secretary Delfin Lorenzana. Is this part of the documents that the Investment Coordination Committee review? Aware ba ho ang ICC dito, doon sa donation?
May I know from Senator Rafi, anong year po yan?
2022. There was a military grant from China, Defense Ministry, worth 1 billion.
Yeah.
Ito po ay na-cite sa Philippine Star.
We're not aware.
Insofar as the economic managers, Senator Rafi, they're not aware of this grant, siguro ang pinakamaganda pong matanungan ay ang DND, at DFA po, when the time comes. But wala ho silang nakuhang application for a loan or application for a grant from the Chinese side.
Okay. Pero monitored ba ng ating gobyerno, Mr. President, itong mga so-called military grant from the Chinese Defense Ministry na ibinibigay sa ating bansa, especially if we consider na may problema ang China, tayo sa West Philippine Sea. So, tayo ba ay tumatanggap pa rin ng grant from
nakita ko ho itong news article. Ito yata yung binabanggit niyong military China donates 1 billion military aid to the Philippines 2022. Tingin ko ang pinakamagandang sumagot ho nito ay yung DND. O ano po yung update nitong grant na ito.
Okay. Monitor lang ng DBCC.
So far as the DBCC is concerned, ang kanilang minomonitor po ay yung non-military donation, loans and grants.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Noong February this year, 4 po na Chinese nationals who are leaders of civic groups overseen by the Chinese Communist Party, yung CCP, Foreign Influence Network according to Reuters, accused by Philippines of espionage for flying drones to spy on the Philippines Navy, made 500,000 cash donation and 10 patrol vehicles to Tarlac Police and the city government. They also donated 10 Chinese-made Sinski motorbikes worth around $2,500 to the Manila Police in 2022. Yung pangalan po ng mga Chinese nationals ay si Wang Yongyi, Wu Junren, Kai Xiaoshuang, Chen Haixiao were among 5 Chinese men detained by Philippine investigators for allegedly gathering images and maps of Philippine naval forces near the South China Sea. Ang tanong ko po, paano natin ma-regulate itong mga donasyon, whether grant or whatever you call it, coming from the Chinese government to being given to the Philippines, Mr. President?
I think from what I understand, Mr. President, this type of donations can be, I think pag local government po ay pwede po silang kumonsulta muna sa Department of Foreign Affairs or Department of National Defense if meron pong mga national security issues. Kung meron pong, or DILG, pwede rin ho silang kumonsulta. Kung ito po ay binibigay sa agencies diretso, pwede rin ho silang kumonsulta sa DFA at the DND. No? So, so far parang wala po akong nalalaman na process on how to accept donations from China.
Sa national government, basta non-military, dadaan sa amin sa DepEd.
Pag non-military po, diretso ho yan sa Department of Finance. No?
Foreign Affairs.
At Department of Foreign Affairs.
Pag local government, we have
I think pag local government ho, it's up to the local government to consult the DND, the DFA, and the DILG for this type of activities, Mr. President.
ang local government, bawal umutang sa foreign.
Grant ho kasi it's normally the foreign entity tapos diretso na po sa local government. So it's important for the local government to consult different agencies kung meron pong issues of geopolitical or may issues po of national security.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dako naman po tayo sa pananalapi. Yung ating bansa ay nag-i-import ng napakaraming mga bagay mula sa bigas, isda, damit, etc. Pati pera natin ay imported sa Australia para sa kalaman po ng lahat. Our polymer banknotes are printed by Note Printing Australia. Kailan po darating yung panahon na yung sariling pera natin tayo na po nag-imprenta at hindi na po galing pa sa ibang bansa, Mr. President?
Yeah. I was advised, Senator Tulfo, by the BSP na once upon a time, dito pala piniprint sa atin yung ating mga pera. No?
Okay.
Once upon a time. But because of technological requirements and security features, piniprint na ho to sa labas ng ating bansa. Pero meron silang direction rin to develop local capability in partnership with the private sector na dito po gagawin na yung printing. No?
And when will that be? When will that happen, Mr. President?
Yung mga paper, Mr. President, yun kaya ho natin i-print. Pero alam naman ho natin ngayon, ang mga papel, ang pera ngayon is hybrid na. May polymer, may fabric. So high-tech na ho yung papel para tumagal ng tumagal at yung po piniprint ho yun sa labas po ng bansa.
Okay. Sabi po ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, yung polymer banknotes daw have a lifespan of 2 to 5 times longer than paper ABACA notes, leading to potential significant long-term cost savings. Pero in May this year, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and the Philippine Fiber Industry Authority, o yung PhilFIDA, have started discussions on the return of ABACA into the country's banknotes. Very supportive po ako dyan na balik na lang po sa ABACA yung banknotes natin. Magandang support na rin po to sa ating mga magsasaka. So wala ho bang plano ang ating pamahalaan, Mr. President, na ibalik na lang sa ABACA yung banknotes natin? Or baka pwede naman po, paghaluin na lang po polymer and ABACA. Integrated po para at least, well, yung mga farmers natin, natutulungan.
I was advised by the BSP Senator Tulfo that yung requirements natin for ABACA ay napakalaki na hindi rin nasusupply ng local suppliers. Yung kailangan ng BSP po, no, yung particular na kailangan. Dahil po yung notes is a very sensitive product at kailangan durable rin, pwede magamit at magamit dahil pag nasisira ng mabilis, kailangan ho natin mag-print all the time. So it has to be a balance between yung local supply and also yung durability ng pera. So, and that's also one thing that they're trying to balance para po matulungan yung mga local suppliers po natin dito. But yung kailangan nila, yung type of ABACA na kailangan nila, kulang rin po yung supply dito.
Kulang? I thought, sabi sa isang datos, Mr. President, the Philippines remains the world's largest supplier of ABACA fiber, commonly known as Manila hemp, contributing significantly to the national economy and providing employment to approximately 1.5 million Filipinos.
Yung move ngayon ng BSP, Senator Tulfo, is yung hybrid na may polymer and ABACA. No? So that's what they're trying to come up with as banknotes. And yun po yung kanilang move para rin merong indigenous material rin yung ating pera.
So meron na pong plano na integrate
meron naman plano po. Meron naman silang plano na gumawa ng hybrid product. But ang importante sa kanila is yung durability. Kasi yung pera, diba, araw-araw ginagamit in exchange of hands, ang dami. So, importante na yung banknotes tumagal ng tumagal para hindi ho napupunit, hindi ho nalulukot. Yun naman po. But they also balance it with indigenous materials ho natin.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Sa commitment fees na lang muna tayo. Actually, I have few more questions, 2 or 3. A levy or charge imposed by creditors on the undrawn scheduled availment of the loan, that's the definition of commitment fees. Halimbawa ng bad debts ay ang mga proyektong inutang natin, yung pondo, tapos hindi naman po nagalaw yung inutang na pera sa kung anong kadahilanan ng mga implementing agencies. Isang halimbawa dyan ay sa DPWH. Sa pang example, delays na implementation ng Malolos-Clark segment of the North-South Commuter Railway or NSCR has already led to the accumulation of commitment fees of $6.5 million or 376.779 million pesos from 2020 to 2024 according to data from the ODA Portfolio Review 2024, Mr. President. So, isa pa pong example, yung the South segment that connects Metro Manila to Calamba, Laguna of the North-South Commuter Railway, NSCR, has likewise incurred commitment fees to the tune of $5.2 million or 201.44 million pesos So, sa exchange rate na 57, tumaas na rin ata ngayon, ano? Hindi ko alam kung magkano exchange rate ngayon.
59 plus na.
59. Well, sayang naman po yung perang binabayad para sa commitment fees. So, paano po natin maiwasan yung ganitong mga senaryo o sitwasyon, Mr. President?
Tama ho kayo, Senator Rafi, and thank you for pointing that out dahil yung commitment fees ho talaga ay largely connected to the implementation of projects. Kung delay po yung implementation of projects, magkakaroon ho tayo ng commitment fees. At marami rin sa delay of projects is caused by factors na hindi rin natin kontrolado. For example po, yung right of way. No? Ito madalas natin pinopoint out na dapat maayos ng gobyerno dahil kung na-delay ang right of way, delay ang project, magbabayad tayo ng commitment fees. Ang kagandahan ho, meron na tayong bagong batas on right of way. Hopefully we can that law can accelerate the acquisition of right of way for infrastructure projects, lalong-lalo na transportation projects. No? So yeah. And also yung support to budget, no, both kasi ang mga ODA loans kailangan may counterpart, no, yung tinatawag na GOP counterpart dapat available na yan at available rin yung pondo for right of way, no. So in other words, dapat hindi ho na-delay ang project para hindi tayo magbayad ng commitment fees.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Last question. So, dun sa mga malalaking kontrata ng ating gobyerno, ano pong ginagawa ng Department of Economy, Planning and Development o DepDev to ensure na yung mga proyekto na pinupunduhan ay talaga magpupush through at hindi na po masasayang yung pera, Mr. President?
Dito po sa bagong DepDev, meron na ho silang tinatawag na Infrastructure Committee. At itong Infrastructure Committee, regular ho nila in-update ang ating Pangulo. How often? Every quarter, in-update po ang ating Pangulo. So that minomonitor nila lahat ng infrastructure projects. At meron ho silang real-time dashboard. In fact, nakita ko ho ito sa internet ho ng DepDev sa website ho nila. May real-time dashboard ho sila sino po ang funder, ano po yung delay, nasaan na po yung project, at ang infra committee naman po ina-update naman ng ating Pangulo every quarter. No? So updated po ang ating Pangulo and the public on infrastructure projects.
Okay, then I have a follow-up question, Mr. President. So in that case, monitored po pala ng
Infrastructure Committee.
Infrastructure Committee, OIC,
Yeah.
at quarterly ini-inform yung ating Pangulo. So, halimbawa po, nakita ng IC na merong medyo na-delay na proyekto, ano po yung course of action na gagawin ng IC?
So, pinapresent po ito sa cabinet meeting nila, and cabinet is also divided into clusters, mas maliliit na clusters. So, kung mayroon pong delay at mayroon pong agency na nagiging dahilan ng delay po, doon nila ho pinag-uusapan po sa cabinet. For example po, may kailangan po ng mga permit sa DNR, for example, ECC, doon nila pinag-uusapan para makuha po yung mga permit. For example, may problema po sa, let's say, sa right of way or LGU, doon rin ho nila pinag-uusapan yun. So, in effect, para siyang whole of government approach in terms of updating the President, the latest on the projects, at kung may problema, doon na rin ho nila sinosolve.
Okay, then another follow-up question there, Mr. President. Kasi sinabi nyo kanina na meron yung tinatawag na Infrastructure Committee na nagmamonitor quarterly doon sa mga proyekto ng pamahalaan para masiguro na hindi mapupunta sa wala o sa commitment fees yung pong pera na nasayang, masasayang lang. Bakit po nakalusot yung Malolos Clark segment ng North-South Commuter Railway at yung South segment na nagkukonect Metro Manila to Calamba, Laguna, at pag sasamahin niyo po itong dalawa, mahigit kalahating bilyon po ang halaga ng perang nasayang. Bakit nalusutan po yung IC? Itong quarterly po yung monitoring.
Tama ho kayo, Senator Raffy. In fact, yan talaga yung delay ho talaga is a self-inflicted injury ho yun. So, nagkaroon ho ng delay ho dito sa dalawang projects na binanggit ho ninyo, primarily because of right-of-way issues. Kaya ho, ipinasa ho natin yung Arrow Act. No? Kung ito po yung magre-resolve sa mga right-of-way issue natin by streamlining the process. Magde-deposit lang po yung national government, pwede na pong kunin yung writ of possession doon sa lupa para mas mabilis po yung paggawa ng right-of-way. Karamihan ho ay, alam ko, right-of-way ang nagiging issue. Yeah.
Totoo po yan, Mr. President. In fact, sa ilang mga hearings, pinunan ko yung mga proyekto ng ating gobyerno at ang sinasabi sa akin ay kaya nadidelay, kasama na natin dyan yung National Irrigation Administration ay dahil sa right-of-way. Ano po?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, bakit gagawa tayo ng project agad-agad na hindi pa natin na-resolve yung issue sa right-of-way? Di ba dapat ayusin mo natin yung right-of-way issue bago tayo tumuloy dun sa proyektong?
Sa aking experience po, dahil nung mayor po ako, dumaan sa amin yung North-South Commuter Rail, typically ho may alignment sila or yung NLEX. Tapos pag na-identify na po yung alignment, doon nila inumpisahan yung tinatawag nila partial yari para malaman sino po yung mga may-ari. And then habang nag-acquire sila ng right-of-way, ginagawa po yung kalsada. Pero dahil minsan nagkakaroon ng private problema sa right-of-way, for example, hindi mahanap po yung may-ari or nagkaroon ng ari po naghabla at nagkaroon ng dispute sa court, tumitigil po yung pag-acquire nila ng right-of-way, tumitigil na rin po yung project. So, yan po yung typically na-encounter, sa my observation, yan po yung typically na-encounter nila. Kaya po dito sa bagong batas na ho, basta nag-deposit ng 15% yung deposit sa araw na. Basta mag-deposit po, alam ko 15 Basta mag-deposit ng 15%, pwede na pong kunin ni lupa, dire-diretso na ho yung project. No? So, malaking bottleneck ho talaga natin ay yung right-of-way. And LGUs, minsan nagiging problema po yung LGU. Minsan yung LGU ho, may request na ilihis yung kalsada o lagay sa iba, nagiging issue. But yan naman po nare-resolve ng DILG.
But isn't it better, Mr. President, if the government can come up with a policy prohibiting any project to be started without first resolving the issue on right-of-way?
Pagkaalam ko ho, ang right-of-way acquisition and then yung project implementation, dapat halos sabay ho siya. Habang ina-acquire po yung lupa, nagko-construct ho tayo. No? Dahil yung pag-acquire ng lupa takes time rin. So ginagawa nilang almost simultaneously. No? Para ho, pagdating sa dulo, nagmi-meet ho sila. No? So ganun po yung strategy. But then again nga, dahil itong right-of-way acquisition humihinto, pati yung construction humihinto rin po.
Yun nga po, Mr. President, sa maraming pagkakataon, tulad nga, again, ulitin ko yung National Irrigation Administration at pinuna ko yun, bakit marami mga proyekto na hindi matapos-tapos at hindi pa rin hanggang ngayon for so many years nakatuwang-wang pa rin dahil sa problema ng right-of-way. So, kine-question ko sila, bakit kayo magpaumpisa ng proyekto na hindi nyo pa pala nakausap yung may-ari ng lupa na tatawiran ng proyektong yon o tatawagin natin right-of-way? Kasi kasama po yun sa feasibility study, di po ba?
I think ang magandang approach, and tama ho kayo, yung right-of-way acquisition, habaan, umpisahan na mas maaga. No? So for example, ang construction po ay gagawin 2026. Dapat po yung acquisition and identification gawin nila maybe 1 or 1.5 years ahead.
Exactly.
Para po, habang tapos na yung acquisition ng right-of-way, at least in one segment, then pwede na mag-umpisa ho ng construction. No? Well, yun sabi ni Secretary Recto, ideal situation, but on the ground, I think ibang...
Inuutang pa natin yung feasibility study kung saan ilalagay.
Yeah. So may mga complication like for example, on the ground or reality is minsan may mga bottlenecks rin sa pag-utang ng let's say pag-utang po for feasibility study o pag-utang sa actual infrastructure. But ako very optimistic po ako, Mr. President, itong bagong batas natin, yung Araw Law. I was actually very minomonitor ko yung batas na yon dahil yun talaga magre-resolve ng maraming right-of-way issues natin. So hopefully, this coming 2026, mas mabilis na yung implementation ng flagship projects.
Okay, that's all. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
President.
thank you, Senator Rafi. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we recognize to also interpolate our distinguished colleague from Tarlac, no other than Senator Rodante Marcoleta.
All right, this is the second round of Senator Marcoleta. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the proposed Section 106 of the General Provisions requires agencies to post in their respective websites various information on infrastructure projects, including geotag photos and exact project coordinates. Nangyari po ito, Mr. President, dahil nga po sa ginagawa nating pag-uusisa sa maanumalyang flood control projects. At napatunayan natin na dahil nga po rito sa kawalan ng proper coordinates sa ginagamit ng DPWH, yung IMS nila, yung kanilang PCMA, yung kanilang MYPS, idagdag pa natin yung Survey 123 na sinasabi nilang most accurate, pero hindi rin po ganun ang kinalabasan. Dahil sa baba ay talagang namamanipula pa rin yung mga flood control